Hello, this is Elliot at the Cape Cod Chronicle for Thursday, December 11th, and 26 is almost upon us. So here's today's news. Uh, the board okays a new Center for Adult Living renovation plan, but it will require a $1.85 million debt exclusion by Alan Pollock. The Select Board hopes that by controlling costs while adding back some key features, they've come up with a special sauce that will help a Center for Active Living renovation to finally satisfy the taste of voters. On the advice of an ad hoc working group, the Select Board on December 3rd endorsed a much revised plan to renovate the Senior Center on Stony Hill Road. For an additional $1.85 million added to the $5 million appropriated earlier this year, the building will get a new low-maintenance exterior and key improvements inside designed to improve the safety, accessibility, and usefulness of the Seafield's program spaces. Planning will now continue on the project, yielding a project ready to go out to bid in February. The town will then select the winning bid from a general contractor and bring a firm project number to the May annual town meeting, rather than an estimate. If two-thirds of voters approve, the measure will be considered in a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion ballot vote 3 days later. If voters give the thumbs up, construction would begin in July, with programs for seniors taking place in temporary quarters until midsummer 2027. The Select Board and Town Manager praised the CFO Working Group, which developed its recommendations over the course of the 9 meetings. The group was assembled when revised project estimates came back nearly $2.7 million over the early $5 million budget, which was based on conceptual plans. The project team then proposed a series of deep cuts to try and bring the renovation back under the budget, but found that it needed to eliminate key features like removing the support columns in the middle of the meeting rooms in order to do so. The working group reassesses the project's basic needs and recommended adding back 7 of those key features. I think we've landed on a place that will hopefully be considered attractive and prudent by town meeting and the taxpayers. Working group member and Finance Committee Chair Stephen Daniel said, the goal was to keep costs under control without compromising the utility of the building. The restored Seafield features aim to enhance its long-term functionality and reduce its long-term operating and maintenance costs, he said. By adding new steel support beams, crews will be able to remove the existing support columns that obstruct views and limit the use of the upstairs multi-purpose room, as well as the exercise room, adult day room, and lobby in the basement. Working group member Rob Stello, a builder, said it makes sense to remove all of the problem columns rather than just some of them. The equipment, everything, is on this job site, he said. So looking at it from a building point of view, if you're ever going to do it and do it right while everything's there, the cheapest way you're going to do it is to do it now. Rather than upgrading the existing siding and windows only where work was being done, the new plan calls for an entirely new building envelope using energy-efficient windows and cement board siding that mimics wood but requires very little maintenance. The plan includes a hybrid kitchen, which will generally greatly improve the usability for the in-house dining programs, but which stops short of a comprehensive kitchen renovation. Stella said that the goal was to be forward-looking. You'd probably end up doing it later, and you'd end up doing damage to the part you already did, he said. Working group member Stuart Smith, a select board member, said the initial cost-cutting generating savings that weren't really savings. They're going to postpone projects that would have had to be done down the road, he said. The prudent time frame to do that is when we've got the building torn apart. The new plan includes a simpler reconfiguration of the parking lot, providing better traffic flow and improved separation from vehicle traffic at the adjacent condominiums. The number of spaces will be increased from 32 to around 42 to 45 spaces, architect Kurt Raber said. The latest project cost estimate is $6.8 million, or $1.8 million higher than the initial $5 million appropriation. The funding plan, Finance Director Carrie Mazerl said, is to use around $500,000 in free cash, and with the balance funded by a one-time capital exclusion. The strategy would add between $185 and $300 to property taxes for a single year, saving prolonged interest payments over 15 to 20 years under a long-term borrowing scenario. Select Board Chair Dean DeCastro said his own tax bill would increase by a couple $100, but that's what it takes to make something happen. The capital exclusion strategy saves hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest, he noted. The Community of Jesus nonprofits seek suit dismissal by Ryan Bray in Orleans. The three defendants in a federal civil suit alleging unpaid child labor and trafficking in relation to the construction of the Community of Jesus' Performing Arts Center have filed motions to dismiss the suit. The Community, Arts Empowering Life Incorporation, and Performing Arts Building Foundation each filed motions to dismiss December 1st in the U.S. District Court in Boston. Oliver Otolani, a former member of the Community of Jesus, alleges in his suit filed in July that children in the community were subject to unpaid labor in the construction of the Performing Arts Center, and that the defendants were in violation of the Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, TVPRA, and the state's labor trafficking statute. He also alleges that the defendants were unjustly enriched by the alleged unpaid labor. Specifically, Ortolani alleges that children, including himself and his siblings, worked 9 to 16 hours a day without proper safety gear, training, or breaks, and that the children workers were assaulted or shunned by the community if they complained or showed even mild frustration with the harsh regimen. It is also alleged that children were kept out of school under the pretense that work on the building constituted educational coursework, and that the child workers were hidden from government officials who came to inspect the project worksite. A memorandum filled with the motions said that the Ortolani suit fails to provide the evidence necessary to support the allegations against the defendants. For instance, plaintiff Oliver Ortolani fails to identify a single individual that did anything to him, what relation that unidentified individual had with any of the defendants, or how any unidentified individual did things to make any of the defendants liable, let alone make them all liable, it reads. The memorandum also points to waivers allegedly signed by Ellen and David Ortolani, Oliver's parents, consenting to Oliver's participation in the work on the Performing Arts Center in Brewster. These arguments, expressly referencing plaintiff, preclude any claim that his participation in these activities was forced or coerced by the defendants, or that they knew that he was forced or coerced to engage in these activities. The alleged agreement signed by Ellen and David Ortolani also contradict any claims that the defendants were unjustly enriched through the alleged work performed by the children workers. It's argued in the memorandum. Here, the language of the release is plain and unambiguous. Oliver, through his parents, released all claims against AEL and PABF arising out of the activities which are defined as the construction of the new performing arts facility. Separate from the motions to dismiss, the defendants have filed a countersuit in U.S. District Court against Ellen and David Ortolani. In that suit, it is alleged that the couple were instrumental in organizing the alleged child labor and educational program that is subject of their son's civil suit. The memorandum adds that while Ortolani's complaint conclusively lumps the three defendants together, the defendants are not alter egos of one another. The complaint does not name or identify any particular individuals who are engaged in the alleged offenses, the memorandum says. He does not identify any relationship between any such unidentified individual and any of the defendants, it reads. He does not identify how it is that any relationship between any such unidentified individual and any of the defendants renders that defendant liable for that unidentified individual's conduct, much less how it is such that any such unidentified relationship between any unidentified individual and any of the defendants makes all the defendants liable. And if you understood any of that, please let me know, because I don't know. Furthermore, there is no evidence that the defendants had any knowledge of forced labor or any other forms of misconduct in the memorandum claims, thus nullifying claims of violations under the state trafficking statutes and the TVPRA. Allegations of RICO violations are similarly discredited in the memorandum, noting the 4-year statute of limitations that exists for such allegations. The memorandum also says that Ortolani cannot plausibly allege that false labor or trafficking took place, or that any of the defendants participated in any racketeering activity. Lily Smith, the attorney representing Oliver Ortolani, did not return a request for comment on the motions as of the Chronicle's Tuesday deadline. Assessor's chair resigns following drug arrest by Ryan Bray. The chair of the town's Board of Assessors has resigned following her arrest last week on a drug trafficking and possession charges. Julia A. Lee, 57, Orleans, pleaded not guilty December 5th in Orleans District Court to charges of trafficking more than 10 grams of fentanyl, 2 counts of possession to distribute a Class B drug, 1 count of possession of a Class B drug, and 2 counts of possession of a Class C drug. Lee was arrested at her home December 4th as part of a joint investigation by the Orleans, Harwich, and Yarmouth Police Departments and the Drug Enforcement Administration Cape Cod Resident Office, according to a press release from the Orleans Police Department. The Board of Assessors is composed of 3 volunteers who are appointed to serve by the Select Board. According to records on file with Town Manager's Office, Lee was appointed to the board in July 2020. Lee submitted her resignation to Town Assessor Brad Hinout on December 8th, saying she needed to attend to an urgent health matter. Her term was due to end on June 30th, 2026. A call to the number listed in Lee's criminal complaint was not returned as the Chronicle's deadline. According to police report from Yarmouth Police Detective Nicholas Ambrosini, a search warrant was obtained for Lee's Harwich residence on December 3rd. During a search of the residence the following evening, police reportedly found a small glass Tupperware container with an off-white powder inside, as well as a digital scale on Lee's kitchen. The substance, about 13 grams worth, tested positive for fentanyl, according to the report. The police also found a clear sandwich bag containing approximately 6.7 grams of a clear rock-like crystal substance, as well as a metal container with 2 plastic bags containing a white powder with a combined estimate weight of 3 grams. The powder tested positive for cocaine, according to the report. Just a quick note here. There are approximately 28 grams of a substance in an ounce, so we're talking very small quantities. This is not an editorial comment. This is just for our listeners' edification. A second metal container with a small folded piece of tinfoil inside was found, the report read. In the tinfoil, police found a piece of paper with a colorful design on it that was cut into 10 small squares. Based on my training experience, I knew this to be LSD, Ambrosini wrote in his report. 2 additional scales, a cup containing approximately 8 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, and just over a gram's worth of crushed white lorazepam tablets were also uncovered during the search, along with approximately 2 grams of crystal methamphetamine found in Lee's purse, and $580 in cash in the home's master bedroom, according to the report. Based on my training experience, trafficking weight quantities of fentanyl, along with the quantities of cocaine and crystal methamphetamine, coupled with the digital scales, all indicative of narcotics distribution rather than personal use, Ambrosini wrote in the report. Lee was released on $500 cash bail and is due back in court on January 2nd. Page 2, a spotlight on Lower Cape personalities and visionaries. Filmmaker Alison Argo has an eye for animals by Ellen Chahi. A gorilla named Ivan launched Alison Argo's career. Argo, who lives in Brewster, has never made a film before she met Ivan. Now she's an Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker whose work about animals has appeared on PBS and the National Geographic Channel. Ivan was living in a dungeon, a concrete display area in a mall in Tacoma, Washington, according to Argo. He was then, around 1980, a 30-something silverback who had not felt the sun or grass since his captivity, probably very early in life, said Argo, and his story had floated into somebody's desk at National Geographic. At that time, Argo was a young actor whose parents had founded the Orleans Arena Theater, now the Academy of Performing Arts. When I wasn't on stage, I was in the balcony, she recalls, of her childhood in Orleans. After a promising start to a stage career in New York, acting with the likes of Vanessa Redgrave and Richard Chamberlain in plays like Grease, The Lady from C, and Night of the Iguana, she moved to Los Angeles to try her hand at TV. Through the television grapevine, Argo heard that National Geographic wanted to produce a documentary about Ivan, and she offered to do it. With no experience in filmmaking, I found my own voice. I didn't have teachers to tell me how to do it. The production aired in 1981 and catalyzed an outcry about Ivan, Argo said. As a result, the gorilla was moved to a natural habitat in Atlanta. Once I saw the power of a film, there was no turning back for me. There's something about a true story, Argo said, of discovering what she called her passion for speaking out for non-human animals, because we humans are animals too. My mission is to advocate for those who don't speak our language. Was Argo always interested in animals? Well, not so much in childhood, but I've always been a very empathetic person, she replied. Injustice really gets under my skin. Now she finds that empathy turned into what she called farmed animals. She turned vegan 8 or 9 years ago, waving towards her kitchen, explained that it was full of beans, lentils, legumes. Animals farmed for meat suffer, she said. I just don't want to be a part of that. Argo has just finished working on Tusker, a documentary about male elephants. The male side of the elephant life is not often depicted, Argo observed, because they live more solitary lives than the family-oriented females. But the males have kind of a brotherhood through which the bachelors teach younger males their life skills, she said. Elephants are more capable than our species of communication. They are so tuned into one another. They show respect for the dead, even of other species, Argo's noted. Argo filmed some of the Tusker in the wilds of Kenya. In that country's Amboseli National Park, she met magnificent male elephants who were kept safe from poachers who would kill them for their tusks. She also learned about Shirley and Jenny, 2 retired circus elephants who bent the bars of their cages so that they could read each other. Tusker, produced from more than 300 hours of footage, is scheduled to air at 8 p.m. on January 14th on PBS as part of its Nature series. Now, Argo is making an independent film about a couple who operate a unique animal refuge in North Carolina. What makes the place stand out is that the species-specific habitats where goats can climb, ducks can swim, for example, is a place where creativity and compassion meet, said Argo. Her several Emmy Awards include 2 for The Urban Elephant and other for documentaries on frogs, chimpanzees, and the secret lives of cats, which she describes as a love letter to cats, but a slap on the hands to humans. When not behind the camera, Argo enjoys a good read and is a big fan of the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series, which is set in Botswana. She once met author Alexander McCall Smith in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. He loves life, even plays in an orchestra, she said, as she smiled at the thought. As she sat behind her fireplace next to her quiet dog, Charlie, Argo, who has traveled so far and wide, only to return to the Cape, reflected on why she keeps coming home. I love the Cape. It's not cookie cutter. Alison Argo has seen and documented a veritable Noah's Ark of animals. Is there one species that she would identify as her own spirit animal? She thinks for a moment and responds, I would like to come back as a monkey. I have tail envy. Demolition begins on BCT's newest project by Mackenzie Blue. By this summer, the Brewster Conservation Trust is hopeful residents will have a new site to behold at 2342 Main Street. Demolition began earlier this month on 2 vacant buildings that have been blocking the view of a lush landscape that includes a freshwater pond, a wet meadow, wooded upland, and broad expanse of wildlife habitat, according to a BCT press release. Demolition, the project, which was originally unveiled in August at the BCT annual meeting, is called Bacchus Overlook. The .44-acre parcel was donated by Steve and Kate Bacchus for conservation purposes, with the understanding that the building on the property would be removed to restore the land. Amy Henderson, BCT Executive Director, said that the land was donated in October 2021, so the project has been 4 years in the making. The parcel of land, located just off Route 6A, once housed an old schoolhouse and was the former site of the Brewster East Spa. Demolition of the structures will result in salvageable lumber that will be repurposed. We're taking the timbers that were salvageable from the roof and we'll be repurposing those, said Henderson. Some of them will be repurposed on the site by BCT, and then the rest we're going to give to the Brewster Historical Society for them to repurpose. The structures themselves were deemed too dilapidated to restore. The idea behind the overlook grew out of the characteristics of the property. Henderson said an overlook made sense given the natural features and grade of the property. The 2 structures are at street level and currently block the view of the man-made pond. BCT will rewild the area to preserve ecological and environmental characteristics. They will use native plantings and continue to steward the land to control invasives, promote biodiversity, and improve sources of food and habitat for pollinators. Once the buildings are removed, a cleverly designed viewing platform will be built for people to enjoy the view, yet travelers on Route 6A will see only the open landscape. The press release reads, with close proximity to commercial areas and bicycle and pedestrian access points, the new Bacchus Overlook will offer the public an accessible encounter with nature just steps away from Main Street. In addition to the Bacchuses, there's been tremendous community support, including from civil engineer John O'Reilly and Wilkinson Ecological Design, who helped come up with the plan, Henderson said. There have been a number of donors who contributed to the project in the early stages. The final design includes accessibility features such as a stairless design, handicap parking, a bike rack, and a hydration station. The BCT expects the project to be completed by the summer. Penrose files for Queen Anne Road housing by William Galvin. Developer Penrose Monday filed a comprehensive permit application for a 60-unit affordable housing project on the former Marceline property along Route 124 and the Queen Anne Road. The application calls for the development of 60 income-restricted housing units with a maximum of 90 bedrooms on 6 acres. The Affordable Housing Trust has agreed to lease to Penrose for 99 years. The trust owns a total of 13 acres at the location. Initial public hearing on the comprehensive permit is scheduled for Thursday, January 8th at 1 p.m. at Town Hall. In a meeting with the trust on Monday, Penrose requested $500,000 contribution from the trust to assist in funding the project, which is estimated to cost $39,400,000. The trust could not act on this request because it was not listed on the agenda and will conduct another meeting later this month, or will wait for its January 5th meeting to address the request. Penrose continues to make adjustments to the plan, which currently calls for the construction of 14 townhouse-style buildings with 3 to 8 units per building. There will also be a clubhouse from which the management will operate. It will also include a community room and a small fitness facility, according to Penrose project developer Ryan Kiricote. There was a concern about how close the Queen Anne Road entrance to the development would be to the Route 124 intersection. The entrance has been relocated much farther east on Queen Anne Road, Kiricote said Monday. 3 major issues came out of discussions with the trust and town staff, he said, one of which was the location of the entrance. The fire department also wanted a straight path into the site and access provided to future development on the land. The third issue was preserving as much of the landscape buffer around the edge of the site as possible. Kiricote said that the development has been pushed further to the north of the property to provide a greater buffer of trees on the Queen Anne Road side. Penrose has been busy conducting environmental site assessments and geotechnical testing to better determine where to build on the site, Kiricote said. Trust member Robert Spencer wanted to know the setback of the 3 structures that would be built along Route 124. Kiricote said they were designed to meet sideline setback of 20 feet, but the road will be considered frontage, which will require a 50-foot setback. Plantings that would be used to buffer the units, Kiricote said, but there'll be a location where a waiver would be requested as part of the comprehensive permit process. Spencer also said the movement of a development farther north on the site would increase an opportunity for solar generation. He wanted to know if solar systems are planned. Carmen Chung, a regional vice president of Penrose, said there would be baseline solar use, but it would be an infrastructure installed for connections that should the solar be installed as the project moves forward. Trust Chair Larry Ballantyne said he appreciated the movement of the entrance further east on Queen Anne Road. He inquired about the time frame of traffic study done for the project. Kiricote said the study was done over 2 days in July. Ballantyne noted concerns raised by residents challenging the 2-way traffic study for the Pine Oaks Village 4 project, questioning whether additional study was necessary. Chung said the traffic consultant would extrapolate from the data, placing it in a model, and see if additional data is necessary. Ballantyne also had questions about the placement of a couple of larger buildings close to the new entrance. Kiricote said a couple of the buildings are combined to avoid changing the grade, which would have required larger retaining walls. A septic system and leaching system is planned at the center green space of the development, Spencer asked. If an innovative alternative system is planned, Kiricote said that would take up less space, but it would cost more, and there's been talk about it. The development would connect to the town sewer when it's available, he added. Housing Committee member Art Bowden pointed out that the units would be built on slabs and wanted to know about the availability of storage for residents. Kiricote said there would be sheds provided for each unit, and there would be bicycle racks throughout the development. Penrose is planning to file low-income tax credits with the state by the March 16th deadline. If funding is approved at that time, construction can start at the site in 2027. Roberta Vincent Shoup, August 18, 1937 to December 4th. Bert, a special woman. Bert Shoup passed Thursday, December 4th, after living a wonderful long life of 88 years. Bert is predeceased by Louis, Amy, and Virginia Vincent, her parents and sister. She's survived by her husband, her 3 sons, her 4 grandchildren. Her special places were Andover, Brewster, Chatham, Massachusetts, and Chandler, Arizona. Bert and Dick loved sitting at their folding chairs behind home plate watching the baseball games. When Bert wasn't enjoying her family gardening or traveling, she volunteered at Brewster Green, where she served as president of the Brewster Green Interval Owners Association. We will have a family and friend service for Bert. I have to add this note. Rather than the usual headshot to accompany the obituary, there is this wonderful photo of Bert lounging on one of her great dark red lounge chairs on her spacious deck, obviously enjoying herself. Kathleen Patricia O'Day, 77, of Brewster, passed away peacefully on December 5th, with her family by her side. True to form, she left this world the same way she lived in it, gracefully, loving, and with everyone around, feeling cared for. Born on April 26, 1948 in Buffalo, New York, Kathleen was the oldest of 9 children. From an early age, she became the steady, loving center of a very busy household. Her siblings spent their lives looking up to their big sister, who had a remarkable gift for guiding, comforting, and occasionally keeping everyone in line when needed. A proud valedictorian of St. Mary's Seminary in Buffalo and a biology graduate of Fordham University, Kathleen combined intelligence, determination, humility in a way that made everyone around her feel supported and inspired. She was predeceased by her parents, whose values of faith, kindness, and good humor carried her forward throughout her life. Kathleen lived with a joyful spirit. She loved doing a fast Macarena, sipping a glass of white wine with her beloved cat nearby, though she always clarified that the cat was not partaking, traveling the world, whether experiencing Paris, England, Virgin Gorda, or skiing in Colorado. She brought curiosity, joy, and laughter wherever she went. She cherished her daily swims at Ocean Edge, devoured books with enthusiasm, was a devoted Boston College football fan, especially proud that both her children graduated from BC. She had a special fondness for Jimmy Buffett concerts, where she never hesitated to join in the fun with a smile and a song. Her sense of humor, warmth, and ability to make others feel at ease will be deeply missed. She is survived by her husband, her daughter, son-in-law, her son and daughter-in-law, her 4 cherished grandchildren, who adored their grandmother's playful spirit and generous heart. Her family was the center of her life. She poured her love, pride, and energy into them every day, creating memories and traditions that will live on for generations. Above all, Kathleen will be remembered as a woman who loved deeply, lived brightly, and brought joy, strength, and laughter to everyone blessed to know her. Barbara Lynn Erel was born in Würzburg, Germany on September 19, 1955, and passed away on November 21st after a courageous battle with stomach cancer. She came to the United States at the age of 5 and spent her childhood in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, places where her love of family, learning, and outdoors began to flourish. Barbara attended Lowell University, earning her Bachelor of Science in Industrial Management before beginning her career as a material planner for a major defense electronics company. Guided by her compassion and a deep desire to care for others, she later earned her nursing degree from Rivier College and became a registered nurse serving patients across New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and New Jersey with unwavering dedication and kindness. Throughout her life, Barbara made her home in Brooklyn, Nashua, and Harvard, Massachusetts, Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and most recently Chatham, each place holding special memories and marking meaningful chapters of her life. Beyond her professional accomplishment, Barbara's heart was rooted in home, creativity, and family. She loved gardening and took great joy in nurturing the flowers and plants that surrounded her home. Her passion for cultivating beauty extended into the wider community as well, where she was an active and dedicated member of the Chatham Community Garden. She cherished working on home improvement projects with her husband Tom, approaching each endeavor with confidence, enthusiasm, and teamwork. Some of her happiest moments were spent learning to build rock walls with her daughter, creating lasting memories stone by stone. Summers often found her relaxing on her son-in-law's boat or on the beach, soaking up the warmth of the sun and the company of loved ones. Above all, she delighted in entertaining her family, especially at Thanksgiving, filling her home with laughter, good food, and the comfort of togetherness. Barbara is survived by her devoted husband, her beloved daughters, her brother, her 4 cherished granddaughters are the lights of her life. She will be remembered for her strength, generosity, creativity, and the deep love she shared with all who knew her. Totally unreal. Hawk seen in HCT Otter Den baffles experts by Eric Williams. Let's say you're a private detective working an Otter Den case at the Robert F. Smith Colebrook Preserve. Your job is to keep an eye on comings and goings in what may be North America's first human-made den. Luckily, you have an ace up your sleeve, a motion sensor camera that records a short video clip when a critter checks out the digs. Perhaps you sit in the Colebrook parking lot sipping coffee, checking the camera feed, and admiring the results of a recent Harwich Conservation Trust, HCT, eco restoration project that transformed the preserve into a wildlife oasis. You may see the usual suspects popping into the den pretty regularly, including a rabbit and a muskrat. An otter scoped out the den on October 6th, but hasn't been seen since. The stakeout is settling into a dull routine, but then something shocking happens. On November 11th, a Cooper's hawk trips the camera in the den. It seems impossible, but feathers don't lie. You dial up HCT headquarters, and suddenly the investigation takes on a new life. I'm not sure where to start regarding the Cooper hawks entering the otter den, other than to say that the occurrence is totally unreal, wrote HCT trustee Herb Raffaelli in an email. If it were not for the photo, every raptor specialist in the world would likely treat the report of a Cooper's hawk behaving in this way as nonsense. Raffaelli, who researched and designed the HTC otter den, is also a noted ecologist, an author of books on wildlife conservation, The Birds of the Caribbean, and is a former chief of international conservation for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. To understand why the bird's behavior seems so unusual, let's take a look at the den's design. The subterranean chamber, made of cinder blocks, is connected to the outside world by 2 buried pipes, each with an 8-inch diameter. One of the pipes runs 20 feet from the den into a pond in the Colebrook Preserve to provide water access for otters. This pipe is straight. The other pipe connects the den to the upland. It's about 18 feet long and runs in a zigzag pattern, surfacing in the upland at about a 20-degree angle. This is likely the route that the Cooper's hawk took to get into the den, a long, dark journey into the unknown. It's a stunning turn of events that may have no precedent. A friend of mine, who's a world expert on accipiters, this group of hawks, said the closest case she knows of was a falconer who trained Cooper's hawks to follow wood rats into their small dens, but these were trained birds. A big difference, wrote Raffaelli. I looked through the handbook of books in the world, books of birds of the world, along with a number of other references, and there's no mention of Cooper's hawk ever entering a burrow, not to mention an 18-foot one. Mark Faherty, noted bird expert and science coordinator at Mass Audubon's Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary, said he was flummoxed and perplexed by the bird's expedition. There's nothing about Cooper's hawk's behavior that makes sense to me, he added. This hawk was just straight up spelunking down a dark tunnel with no idea what was in there. Faherty said Cooper's hawks are known for their ability to fly quickly through dense wooded areas on a quest for prey, which is mainly smaller birds. They also eat some smaller mammals like chipmunks and squirrels. He thinks the hawk likely was seeking a snack in the pipe as opposed to following some sort of general curiosity. There's one thing on a hawk's mind, and that it's its next meal, said Faherty. It wasn't house hunting, it was going after prey. While the camera provides proof that the hawk was in the den, there's still many unknowns. The short video shows the Cooper's hawk striding into the pipe that heads towards the pond. Conan O'Brien, HCT's Director of Land Stewardship, said that since the pond is tidally affected, the hawk may have been able to exit the pond pipe during the lower tide times. The line of speculation means that the hawk made a nearly 40-foot underground journey. The theory gained some credibility due to the fact that the hawk only triggered the motion motion sensor camera once on its way into the pond pipe. Had it turned around, it's possible it would have again triggered the camera as it re-entered the den. It does not appear that the hawk somehow got stuck in one of the pipes. About a half an hour after the hawk passed through the den, a rabbit entered via the upland pipe. 5 hours later, a muskrat is seen entering the den from the pond pipe. If a stuck hawk was blocking the pipe, it seems fair to assume that one of those animals would not have entered the den. So what we have is a first-class hawk mystery. In an attempt to glean more insight, ACT is planning to install additional camera outside the den near the upland pipe exit. Meanwhile, birding experts are chirping about the hawk's amazing adventure. It makes me claustrophobic just thinking about what this bird was doing, said Faraday. This brave pioneer of a Cooper's hawk just heading down the tunnel. Select Board votes to expand early education program to children from birth to age 4 by Ryan Bray. Ashley Bilodeau lives in a town with her partner and almost 2-year-old daughter. For the past 12 years, she's owned and operated her own business in Chatham, but the cost of childcare has made balancing life at work and home difficult, she told the Select Board last week. It's a vulnerable decision to choose mothering or providing, she said. It's incredible the number of people who've asked me if I still have my store. Bilodeau said she and her partner together pay approximately $5,400 a month on housing, and 2 days a week they send their daughter to daycare. And that doesn't include food or anything else, she said. Christina Lee, another Orleans resident, said she pays $960 a month to send her son Miles to daycare, just 12 hours a week. She runs her own physical therapy practice while her husband works for a local environmental firm. Even with our advanced degrees and professional careers, we're pretty much living paycheck to paycheck trying to make ends meet, she said. And part of that is the cost of childcare. Meanwhile, Brenner Smith, the therapist, said he decided to work part-time so he could watch his daughter Cedar and keep the cost of daycare down. All 3 parents said the additional resources from town could make this immeasurable difference to families and many others in Orleans. Hearing this, the Select Board voted on December 3rd to expand its existing early education and care program to support families with children from birth to 4 years of age. The board also voted to expand this year's program through the end of the current fiscal year on June 30th, while funding remains. Looking ahead to fiscal 2027, which begins July 1st, the board said it hopes to expand the overall budget for the program and offer it throughout the fiscal year. Currently, the program operates through the school year from September to June. You have a select board that really wants to move forward, and a very capable staff can organize this in a way that will be successful, Select Board Chair Kevin Galligan said. First adopted through town meeting in 2021, the Early Education and Care Program had supported families with children aged 3 to 4. Throughout the program, eligible families can apply for funding from $7,000 to $10,000 to defray the cost of child care services, with the town directly paying child care facilities. Alex Fish, the town's Director of Health and Human Services, said that on average, 33 children have taken part in the program annually since fiscal 2023. But with the rising costs of childcare and other goods, materials and services, she said there is a need to expand the program's offering to more families in town. She said the average cost of childcare in Massachusetts is approximately $26,000. We don't really need statistics to tell us that it's expensive to live here in Cape Cod, Fitch said. Everybody here feels the burden of a rapidly rising cost of living. Housing prices, the cost of food, etc. Families with young children have to deal with that and the fact that Massachusetts is the most expensive state for childcare in the country. To be eligible for funding, families must provide proof that they are Orleans residents, that their children are eligible age, and they are working with a child care operation that is licensed by the state. With the expanded eligibility, Fitch estimated 54 children would be eligible to participate in the program moving forward. Michael Herman of the Select Board in recent years has spoken of the need to expand the program to help more families locally. I'm very excited And thank you for working on this, he said. I've always wanted to see us do universal childcare, and this kind of gets us to that. Assistant Town Manager Mark Reel said there is about $45,000 remaining in the program's budget for the current fiscal year. The board voted to allow families to apply for grants of $7,000 on a first-come, first-served basis until funding for the year runs out. Because I think it would be awful to have unused funding by June 30th, said Medford Runyon of the Select Board. Beyond the current fiscal year, Herman said he supported offering flat grants of $10,000 to all eligible applicants. The program was originally funded at $495,000 annually, a number that has been since scaled back to $300,000. But the board favored increasing the program budget to support its expansion. The board voted 3-0 to expand the program's eligibility and make it a year-round program. Board members Mark Matheson and Andrew Reed were absent from the December 3rd meeting, but Runyon said that they're in full support of expanding the program. The vote was met by applause from residents and parents of young children in attendance. Chatham celebrates Christmas by the Sea this weekend by Tim Wood. A weekend full of events and activities is in store for the town's annual Christmas by the Sea celebration, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Association. The weekend begins Friday with the annual light parade. Participants will assemble at the community center at 5:30 p.m. and proceed down Main Street, led by none other than Santa Claus. Bring a flashlight or battery-powered candle and follow the Jolly Elf to the Sears Park Triangle at the corner of Main and Seavey Streets to sing carols, sip hot chocolate, and Curtis of Chatham Bars, and witness a lighting of the town tree at approximately 5:45 p.m. The annual holiday stroll follows with most shops along Main Street open and seasonal refreshments, activities, and raffles. Santa will hear children's Christmas wishes in his workshop, the Chamber of Commerce information booth, from 6:30 to 8. Passengers can hitch a horse and carriage ride at the town offices from 6 to 9 p.m. Saturday starts breakfast with Santa at the Wild Goose Tavern. Tickets are required. A special benefit screening of the Polar Express will be held at the Chatham Orpheum Theater at 9:30 p.m. Holiday shopping happens throughout the town all day with live entertainment along Main Street from 2 to 4:30. Santa will be at his workshop at the downtown chamber booth from 1 to 3 p.m. for kids to drop in. Chatham to stick with current emergency shelter plan by Tim Wood. The town will continue to rely on a regional shelter for prolonged emergencies, while the community center will remain an emergency personal care site for short-term situations. The Select Board approved the recommendation from Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director Justin Tavano last week, rejecting a proposal to develop an alternative plan for a full-scale local emergency shelter by a 3-2 vote. Select Board member Stuart Smith pushed for the alternate shelter plan, saying the town should be ready to take care of residents should the regional shelter plan falter, as it did 2 years ago. At that time, Cape Cod Regional Technical High School, Chatham's regional shelter, was under construction, and the alternative location, Nauset High School, suffered a generator failure. The plan may never be implemented, he said, of having a local alternative shelter in place, but it doesn't hurt to have one. The goal is not to duplicate or supersede the regional shelter, but to be prepared should that plan fail. It seemed like a prudent measure to simply address something that has taken place, he said. When it comes to emergencies, redundancy is critical, he added. At the board's December 2nd meeting, Tavano said it would be a challenge to mount a full-scale emergency shelter at the most likely location, the Monomoy Regional Middle School, because it doesn't have a full building generator. The town would also have to purchase equipment, such as costs, and figure out how to staff a facility. There's going to be some capital cost, acknowledged board member Corey Metters, who supported Smith's proposal, but he added there's no harm in having an extra layer of protection. Tavano said he has met with the school officials over the possibility of using the middle school as a shelter, and talks are ongoing. Other board members said it made no sense to duplicate Barnstable County's regional shelter plan. Tavano said he knows of no other Cape towns that have alternative plans for long-term shelters, and board member Shireen Davis noted that for many local residents, the tech school may be closer and easier to get to than the middle school. The town has relied on a regional emergency shelter plan for many years, said Chair Dean Nicastro. He saw no need to deviate from it. I just don't think that's something we need to do, he said, noting that the police department also backs the current plan. I think we have a good plan in place. We should listen to our public safety professionals. Under the town's current emergency management plan, which Devano said is vetted by the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency and reviewed yearly, if weather events are severe enough, the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee opened several regional shelters, including Cape Tech. Such an overnight shelter requires medical and security personnel on site, as well as sleeping and pet accommodations, showers, and kitchen facilities, all of which must be fully accessible. The shelters are set up based on a statewide mass care and shelter coordination plan, he said. In contrast, a personal care site does not provide overnight accommodations, kitchen and shower access, or facilities for pets. A personal care site, also known as a warming or cooling center, provides temporary access to climate-controlled environment and emergency power to charge medical and communication devices, according to a memo from Devano to the Select Board. Such a facility is operated during isolated or short-term events that don't have a significant town-wide impact. The town's personal care site, the community center, has a full building generator but lacks shower and kitchen facilities. The police station on George Ryder Row can also function as a temporary personal care site, but, said Police Chief Michael Anderson, we're not the solution, we're a Band-Aid. The community center has opened a few times for residents to warm up during power outages, but the inability to keep it open 24 hours a day poses a risk for some, especially the elderly, critics of the plan have said. While there is no specific Plan B to the town's emergency management plan, it is reviewed annually and tabletop exercises conducted to work through the various emergency scenarios and contingencies, Devano said. He recommended that the town rely on personal care sites for short-term emergencies and continue to participate in the regional shelter plan for prolonged emergencies. The town should continue public education and information efforts to ensure residents understand the difference between a personal care site and a regional shelter, he added. The board voted to back Devano's recommendations 4-0, with Smith abstaining. We'll get there. Clean energy advocates press ahead following no vote on code, by Ryan Bray. For the second time since 2023, town meeting voters last month said no to an article seeking adoption of a specialized energy code. But for advocates, the work to advance green energy initiatives continues, even if plans to adopt the code may be put slightly to the side. The specialized energy code, if adopted, would have solidified the town's status as a green leader community, which in turn would put it in line for substantial grant funding from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. The code would have required that all new construction in town be wired for electrification and include a small solar component to help offset fossil fuels. But opponents to the code at the special town meeting raised concern over what its adoption would ultimately cost property owners. Others expressed uncertainty over whether the grid is strong enough to withstand the changes that would come with adopting the code. The article failed, 304 to 245. I was very hopeful, John Lundas, who chairs the town's Energy and Climate Action Committee, said of the votes, I think this makes a lot of sense for the town. So I'm a little disappointed. The Select Board, during its November 19th town meeting, recap also weighed on the code's failure to pass. Board Chair Kevin Galligan, who spoke as a private citizen at town meeting in favor of adopting the code, said town meeting staff made considerable efforts to educate voters on all the articles ahead of the fall sessions, including through public forums and information sessions. Despite that, they blame misinformation that was shared during the discussion of the article on town meeting floor that steered voters away from supporting the article. There was one individual with incorrect information that swayed a bunch of the meeting, and that was irresponsible, he said. During discussion of the article, Ben Zender, a local zoning and land use attorney, argued that the specialized code would apply to all properties in town if it were to be adopted. Assistant Town Manager Mark Reel said according to MDOER, this is not true and would only apply to new construction in town. Reel said the information cited by Zender was tied to language in the state's Stretch Energy Code, which the town has already adopted. But despite the 2 no votes against adopting the code, Gallagher said advocates in town remain committed to further supporting the code and the town's other clean energy efforts. We'll get there, he said. Londa, meanwhile, said efforts to push the specialized code could take a backseat to other clean energy objectives that are being prioritized by the Energy and Climate Action Committee. Given 2 defeats, I don't see this coming back in the near term, he said. On the other hand, we're continuing to work through our municipal decarbonization plan. The committee is working on developing a municipal decarbonization plan for the town, which will lay out a way of moving municipal operations from where currently to a net zero by 2050. It's a long runway. Other clean energy projects are also underway. Those include the installation of electric vehicle chargers in Depot Square, which London said could be ready for spring, as well as the creation of a policy outlining how electric vehicles will be phased into the town's vehicle fleet. Efforts to outfit the town's wastewater treatment facility, water treatment facility, and public works building with solar are also underway, Londa said. But failure to adopt the specialized code comes at the expense of a state grant of up to $1 million that the town otherwise would have been eligible for to fund those and other initiatives. Londa said other grant opportunities exist, but the funding is considerably less. We're still a green community, he said. We still have access to green community grants, but the scale of those is much, much smaller. If we decided we wanted to convert a municipal building to all electric, those are expensive projects. Michael Herman of the Select Board on November 19th noted that voters can say no to the specialized code now, but the conditions set out in the code likely become the standard in the future. But then we've missed out on all the financial benefits along the way, he said. Galligan said that while fear and uncertainty may have eclipsed facts in the discussion of the specialized code at the town meeting, officials and advocates need to continue to put their best foot forward to educate people about the code and the benefits of clean energy, the pursuit of which, he said, is the right thing to do for the town. You've got to get people in a way that they can truly trust that this is in their best interest of the town, he said. When there is any doubt cast, people are going to say, I'm not ready. But that really is the beauty of this little form of government we have. A bit of history in the few minutes remaining. 2 genealogies and how they involved, by Junie Cunoff. The Atwood Museum in Chatham was built originally as a family home of Captain Joseph Atwood. While the Chatham Historical Society does not do genealogy research per se, it was thought appropriate that an Atwood genealogy should be compiled, based chiefly on 3 available sources described below. The family tree maker application was used to create the family file, cleverly entitled Atwood, then uploaded to Ancestry.com. It is available to anyone who has access to the Ancestry database. First Atwood source, the Atwood compilation, began with the research done by Elijah Francis Atwood, a third cousin 5 times removed, i.e. 5 generations later, of Captain Joseph, and published as Ye Atwood Annals in the early 20th century. This excellent, though sparsely documented work, covered some of the descendants of Peter de Wychrist, his son William Atwood, and the Atwood families who resided in several hundred years at Sanderstead Court Manor, County Surrey, United Kingdom. They were the progenitors of the Atwoods who emigrated to New England in the mid-1600s and from whom Captain Joseph directly descended. Second Atwood source, Camille Ann Atwood, a forthright great-granddaughter of Captain Joseph Atwood, was generally interested in family history. She visited Sanderstead Court and obtained photographs and documents which substantiated much of E.F. Atwood's work. She combined that information with her own research on subsequent generations. archive records, her own family records, and some online genealogical sites. The third source is archive departments discovered that we had some family group sheets that belonged to the Nickerson Family Association. We offered to return them, and coincidentally, they had 3 boxes of Atwood family group sheets that they offered us in exchange. The information covered Atwoods far beyond Chatham and Cape Cod. The information was painstakingly added into the Atwood family genealogy. Besides the Atwoods, the CHH archivists frequently receive requests for information about other Chatham families. We try to answer everyone's queries by searching through our archive files, which consists of donated letters, photograph documents, Bible records, newspaper clippings, and general family information, including here and there a family tree put together by a family member. 2 other sources sometimes consulted for verification purposes are the CHH published History of Chatham by William C. Smith and Chatham Vital Records through 1900. Thank you for listening. We'll be here next week.